Hello friends, and welcome to the Hanged Man in the Moon. If this is your first time here, welcome. Thank you for coming. I'm pleased to meet you. If you've been here before, thank you for returning. I'm truly honored. Friends, if you are a returning visitor, you know that we are in the middle of a Deccan walk, which I call a different kind of Deccan walk, and there's a whole series on my channel dedicated to that. But I found a little bit of extra time, so I decided to record another video for us. And we are right now, just in case you're curious, just beginning the third decan of Gemini. So that is keyed to Aquarius, which brings the rulership of Aquarius, Saturn, into Gemini. So we have Saturn in Gemini, which means we have the fixed aspect of mutable heirs, vital attributes entering our world right now. Yes? And there's a video describing this decan and exploring this decan, which you can check out later if you want. But this is what I call 2 layers of practice. Yes? This is where I ask questions and use an oracle deck and tarot to answer those questions. And when we get to the tarot part of the reading, I read the same spread in 2 different ways. I read the spread in a way that I generally coach my tarot mentees when helping them learn tarot. Yes? And then I go back and read the same spread in a more esoteric way, which means including the Kabbalah, it means including astrology in a particular way, a way that I have uncovered or rediscovered for myself, which is described in yet another playlist called Walking the Lines of Origins to Deeper Strata. And I'll put a card up here if you want to hop on over and look at that playlist, because that will help explain why I'm reading the cards the way I'm reading them. Yes? But if you're all good, just follow along. Now, there will be timestamps in the description box so that you can jump to any part of the video that you are most interested in. You can hop on over to the oracle section. You can hop on over to the first layer of reading of the tarot and just stop there. Or you can skip right on over to the esoteric reading. Yes? It's a choose your own adventure kind of video. Yes? So I have that all prepared for you. Yes. Now, I told you what we're doing. I told you the tools you have to navigate this. But let me tell you the questions I've asked, yes? And about the decks a little bit. So, first, before I do any of that, let me say thank you. Thank you for being here. Thank you for joining us on this journey, yes? And thank you for doing those things that you do. Thank you for hitting the thumbs up button. Thank you for subscribing to the channel and hitting the bell that gives you notifications of when I upload videos. All of those things that you do are also of benefit to other people, because YouTube helps other people find us and they join our community, and our community has been growing because of you. So thank you. And thank you for those of you who comment in the comment section. Yes, I find you the greatest blessing of all. Thank you for doing all of those things. Now, friends, when I do this kind of video, as it has been my tradition on this channel, I start off with a question, which is, how can we live our lives more intentionally in the coming week? And for this part of my channel, for this playlist, I use an oracle card or an oracle deck to respond to that question. And then after reading that oracle card, or maybe it's more than one card, I will pull 3 cards from a tarot deck, yes? Now, the tarot deck that I have chosen for this week's video is very, very out of print. If you are here to see decks that you can buy, I'm very sorry about this. This is a deck that I have wanted for a long time, and I've finally gotten my copy as best as I can. It might not be the perfect copy in the world, but it works well enough for me. Yes? And so I decided I wanted to use it for this video. And you'll see it in just a moment. Yes, but unfortunately, I won't have a link in the description box for this deck because really, it's hard to find. It is findable, but it is hard to find. Yes? There are reproductions of the deck. And you can look for those on your own. Okay? So, the Oracle deck is in print, and I think I will have a link in the description box below. It is called the Wild Harmonic Oracle. Lovely Oracle. And I love the Oracle. I love the concept of the Oracle. I love the shape of the Oracle. The size is a little small for my hands, but I still love the Oracle. But the guidebook, both the first version of it and the new version of it, is not satisfying for me. The first version of it was very, very short and had not enough information for my purposes, but I was still able to work with it. The new version has way too much information, and it doesn't really work with my reading style for this Oracle deck. So what I have done is I've taken the information from the large new guidebook, and I have condensed and reworked it to a way that will help me when I use this deck. So I have not exactly rewritten the guidebook, but I have summarized and then modified it for my reading practice with this deck. And I hope the author of this deck is not upset by that, but that's what I needed to do, because this is a round deck, and I read round decks in a very specific way. Yes, I read them with 4 cardinal points, and each one of the cardinal points has a specific expression for the card. So, for that all to make sense, I needed to restructure the information in the guidebook for myself. Yes, so I've done that, and we're going to play with that as we read these cards together. So, friends, what are we going to do? First, the first question, how can we live our lives more intentionally in the coming week? Recognizing that right now we are in the Gemini season, this last decan. And actually, the question was, how can we live our lives more intentionally during this time of Gemini? So it's more than just a week. Yeah, we've got a little bit more than a week to cover with this spread. And this time of Gemini with Saturn is a time of mental clarity. It's a time of organizing thoughts. It's a time of structuring ideas. It's a time of also being, having our path cleared. Yes, we can move forward in this decan, according to the information that I got from this video that I recorded exploring this decan. God, I hope that made sense. My brain just glitched. So my mental clarity still needs a little bit of work, I guess. Friends, let's get started. First, I will show you the 3 cards, the 3 oracle cards that appeared answering that question. How can we live our lives more intentionally during the time of Gemini? Here they are. You saw, and you also see, that for the response to this question, there were 3 cards. And this is a spread that was it's in the newer version of the guidebook. I'm not sure if it was in the old version. I don't quite remember, but I like this spread. I like this spread using 3 cards. It's called a Vesca Pisces spread, but I see it. Okay, so the original idea is there's one pillar on one side and another pillar on the other side, and they come together to form a portal, yeah, that we can go through, which I think is perfect. It's wonderful. I also see the tree of life in this So on the, let's see, for you, this is the left-hand side. Yeah, on the left-hand side, that card is also a representation for me of the mother pillar of the tree of life. Yes, which is the pillar of severity. And it's generally the pillar that the energy goes down, comes from the divine going down. And then the card on the right, I think this is the right for you, represents the father pillar. And that's the pillar of mercy. And in the pillar of mercy, I should be moving my hand in the other direction. It's the direction of the energy reaching back up towards the divine. So the mother pillar comes down and the father pillar goes up. Yes? And then in the center, we've got the middle pillar, right? It's the center point. It's the balance. It's the fusion. It's not the fusion. It's the alchemy of bringing together yin and yang. It's the alchemy of bringing together the mother and the father, of the sun and the moon. Yes? So we bring these two aspects together and we discover something in the middle. Yeah, in yogic or Buddhist practice, that could be the middle path, right? Not too severe, not too loose. Not too much mercy, not too much severity. The nice Goldilocks center, right? So let's start off with the mother pillar, which was on the left. And you saw that, do you notice that these cards, two of them are pointing to the left? That should be left for you. And one of them is upright. Yes? So when I read round cards, whether they are oracle or tarot, when a card is upright, I see the significance of that as being the straight, and when I straight, I'm not opposing that to what? LGBTQ communities, but rather the direct. Yes, that's the word I was looking for. The direct meaning of the card, the direct information of the card. When the card is upside down or reversed, I see that as a blockage or a resistance to whatever the card is pointing towards. When the card is pointing to the right, I see the seeker or the idea expressed in the card as being hyper energized, trying too hard to accomplish or do or become whatever is indicated in the card. And then when the card is pointing to the left, which we got two of those, there's a lack of energy. There's it's not a resistance to it, it's a laziness about it. It's an unenergized aspect of whatever is present in that card. Does that make sense? So we've got two cards which are indicating a lack of energy or a lack of focus or a lack of attention to those ideas. And one is upright, direct, right? Okay, so we start off with the mother pillar, which is on the left for you, and that was the presence of absence. It's actually the last card of this deck. Now, what do you think of the art on this deck? I think the art is, the color is beautiful, the art is at once simple and yet deep. Yeah, you can see a lot going on in a very simple image in these cards. In the presence of absence, we see what? We see a checkerboard pattern which seems to be going towards a center, and there's an empty-ish looking triangle right there. Yes? And then there are three things that look like Pac-Man to me around the triangle. Yeah, each one looking like it's about to take a bite of one of the legs of the triangle. Yes? An equilateral triangle. What does that mean for presence of absence? Not exactly sure. Honestly, the art for this card has never really been clear to me, and I've gotten this card a few times in readings. The title of this card points to things that... What? Okay, let me just dive right in. Okay, so the essence of this card is that life is defined not only by what is present, but also by what is absent. Yeah? We're defined not only by the things that are here, but the things that we notice are not here. The things that we wish were here, or even the things that we dread and we are glad that they're not here. Or those liminal spaces, those pauses where I'm not quite here and I'm not quite there. I'm in this gap. There are all those ideas in the presence of absence. Yeah? What appears to be missing or what we don't see can shape our reality. Just as much as tangible events. Yeah? Things that don't happen, things that don't appear for us, also change how we live our lives. Does that make sense? Because absence is not only lack. It can be an opening, yes? It can be an unseen influence as well. Yeah, it could be a portal, a way, something to walk through, as in a liminal space. But it could also be something that we don't see and yet it is still influencing our lives, right? Those unseen influences that are what we call behind the scenes or beneath the surface that we don't really appreciate or we can't perceive but are still affecting our lives. Or it could be a suppressed part of ourselves. Things that we refuse to see, things we don't want to look at, those things that are often considered in Jungian psychology the shadow. Right? That could be expressed in this card. Now, because this card is pointing to the left for you is this way, it's pointing to the left, there's an underuse of the information in this card. So it's an avoidance of noticing the absence of things. It's not fighting against it. It's not resisting it. It's, I don't want to look at it. I don't want to think about it. Right? So we may be ignoring or denying the subtle spaces of our lives. Those things that are not tangible. We might be not giving enough attention to our unconscious patterns, to those shadow aspects, which are not always bad things, right? Some things in the shadows are actually jewels. They're treasures that we could discover, but we don't because we're not looking there. We're not taking the time. We're not putting in the concerted work, if you will, of understanding what is lying beneath the surface, what is lying behind the scenes. Instead, we could be doing other things. We could be filling those senses of absence, those areas where we sense absence, because that could be uncomfortable. We could be filling those with distractions so that we don't notice that there are these empty spaces in our lives, yes? It could be distractions like our devices. It could be distractions like squirrel. It could be anything. It could be repeated patterns of thought that just fill the empty space. Instead of sitting in the empty space and exploring the empty space, we keep repeating patterned ways of thinking to fill that empty space so that we don't notice because it's uncomfortable. And so one thing we might ask of this card when it is pointing to the left is, where am I refusing to sit with the emptiness? Yeah? And what wisdom might it hold if I did sit with the emptiness? And it could be a call to meditation. It could be a call to journaling. It could be a call to, even if it's not a focused or structured meditative experience. It could be sitting in nature, under a tree, looking around, but not looking at, but looking through the veil. That could help us. Even supported by nature, we might feel more comfortable looking into that void, into those open spaces or those empty spaces, or being able to look within and see those things that are moving within us that we are not generally giving attention to because we are keeping our minds busy with other things. So key themes for this are to remember that the unseen is equally real as the seen, which could also point towards how much are we allowing our spiritual practice to influence our daily lives? Or how connected are we with our eternal natures and our physically manifesting natures, our ego and our eternal natures? How connected are we? And remembering that absence is an opening, it's not only loss. And if we name things loss or lack, that we are creating discomfort for ourselves. If we can see those as openings or portals that we can peer or step through, they can become something very different. Also, hidden influences are shaping our lives, are shaping our energy and our experiences of the world. And in those empty spaces, there might be frozen energy that could be released, that could help energize us. And creativity and intuition lie within those open spaces. And they could emerge from that emptiness if we can allow ourselves to stop distracting ourselves. Does that make sense? So, on one pillar we have those ideas. And that's the pillar of severity, which actually feels a little bit more like it could have been the father pillar of mercy, right? Oh, allowing ourselves to look within and look deep and look behind and appreciate the spaces and the voids. Seems like a very father pillar thing to do, but here it is on the mother pillar. So what did we have on the father pillar on the right? We had an upright version of celestial of fire, right? The heavens, fire in the celestial of fire, the heavens of fire, right? And we see what looks like Atlas there. I mean, it makes me think of Atlas because it looks like maybe feels male presenting to me, but that could just be my prejudice. Holding up a large thing on his, her, their shoulders, right? And then there's the globe right there at his, her, their chest. So it gives me the feel of Atlas, but instead of Atlas holding up the world, Atlas is holding up fire, right? And the subtitle, the title at the bottom of this card is True Will, which feels like a very mother pillar kind of idea, concept. True will, the pillar of severity. And the essence of that card is consciously reclaiming our power to shape our lives. And because this is upright, that's the direct message of this card. Yeah? Breaking old ways of being and aligning fully with our highest purposes. Yeah, our purest purposes, the purposes that are most in alignment with the eternal natures that we are having these human experiences. So upright, the energy is thriving. The message, the concept is thriving. So we have the potential to really direct our energy with clarity and discipline toward what really matters for us. Yes? And any challenges that we experience are there to shape our willpower. And stepping into our role as conscious creators of our lives is important, significant, and powerful for us. And the question I might ask of this card when it's in reverse, and here it is on the right-hand side of the spread, right, the yellow one, is what am I intentionally shaping with my will right now? What am I creating in my life? Yes, and some themes for this are reclaiming personal power. Yes, breaking old orbits or old patterns of our lives. Our will used as a forge for self-mastery. We also want discipline over ourselves. We want to create ourselves and our experience consciously, not unconsciously, not with our reactivity, not with our unconscious patterns. We want to do it consciously. And any challenges that appear, we want to use them as fuel for moving forward. So on one side, we have the mother pillar, which is saying, notice the voids, notice the empty spaces, notice them as portals. What can we discover from within? And on the father pillar, we have the idea of consciously shaping and creating our lives. And anything that might come up, use that as fuel for the fire. Yes? And so, those two things, which do seem to be a little bit oppositional, a little bit yin-yang, although really, interestingly to me, it feels like the yin side of the duality is pointing towards yang, and the yang part of the duality is pointing towards yin. Also very interesting. But if you think of it, right, if you think of that yin-yang Taoist symbol, we do have black in the white and white in the black. Or in Korean, the Korean version of it, we have red in the blue and blue in the red. Yes? So that's all very interesting. So let's look at that center pillar. And this card is a little bit unsettling for me because what is the middle path also seems like it's lacking energy. Right? And you see here, in the center, we have fire of dimensional. And dimensional, I think, is the last realm of these oracle cards. Yeah, it goes from earth to water to fire. The order is not clear in my head right now, but I think it's like earth, water, fire. No, it's earth, fire, water, air, and then celestial, and then spirit, and then dimensional, I think. Something like that. It's a really interesting, fabulous oracle with lots of cards. It's yay, this deck. So, fire of dimensional. What is that? And again, we got two fires here, right? On the right-hand side, on what I was thinking of as the father pillar, we had fire, celestial of fire. Here in the center, we have fire of dimensional, which is at the bottom, well, for you, it would be on the right-hand side of the card. There's a title at the bottom which says self-creating. Yes? So, again, we have self-creating. But this isn't true will, this is self-creation. And the essence of this card is always shaping ourselves and our reality, consciously or unconsciously. So it's the balance of conscious and or unconscious creation of self. Yes? And it's by taking responsibility for our perspective and our choices, we reclaim the power to create with intention. And this is intentional creating. We can reclaim that. Which is interesting. That's a course that I'm teaching this semester. It's just ending at my university. But because this card is pointing towards the left, we're underusing this. So maybe this is something for the middle pillar we want to give more attention to, we want to give more energy to. Because right now we might be avoiding responsibility for our perspective and our choices. Yes? And that could cause us to drift without clear direction in our self-creation. And we are always creating self. We are co-creating self. Because nothing, even our lives, is a solo act. It's not a monologue. Everything that we do is a co-creation. Even the bodies we are co-creating and inhabiting as eternal beings having a human experience. But also, every aspect of our lives is a co-creation. And yet, right now, it seems like we might be drifting. Yeah? And that's something that can happen to a Gemini. But with Saturn coming in, we don't want to do that. Because right now we have Saturn in Gemini, right? So instead of avoiding responsibility, we want to take responsibility, which is a very Saturnian thing. The question I might want to ask is, what small action can I take today to actively shape my life? It doesn't have to be, I'm going to fix everything right here and right now. We want to allow ourselves to break it down into bits, because this is a big thing. Yes? What small thing can I do right now, right this day, at this moment, to focus my attention, my energy, my intuition, my intention into creating my life in a positive, focused, self-empowered way? And things that we might want to consider are reclaiming our personal power. And if you feel powerless right now, it is a choice to be able to move in the direction of reclaiming our power. Do you believe that? I hope you do, because it is possible. And if you want to know more about that, if you want to talk about it, if you want to argue with me about that, the comment section is there for you. Yes? Choosing perspective with intention. We choose our perspective. We don't have to be... Our perspective does not have to be controlled by our environment or the people around us. We can engage in our lifelong act of becoming and self-evolution, which is living an intentional life. And we can align our action with our desired reality. And we truly can do that. And that is the middle pillar. And this middle pillar is showing us that maybe right now we're not doing that. We're not resisting it, but we're not giving it the energy that it calls for. Does that make sense? Okay, friends, what I'm going to do now is I am going to show you. Now, there wasn't one question that came out of this, but I asked the next deck, which you've already seen in the thumbnail, to respond to these three cards, right? And so I think let me tell you, well, first let me show you the cards, and then let me tell you what I think the deck was doing in response to these three cards. Okay? So, friends, here is the response from this deck that I love, and I might still be on the keep trying to keep my eyes out for a better copy of. But still, I'm very happy with this copy that I have. Here it is. Friends, do you know this deck? This is called the Hoi Polloi. Now, there is a recreation of this deck on Make Playing Cards. I think it's still available. And, I'll try and see if I can find it and put a link in the description box below. It's recolored in different tones, and while I appreciate the work that the creator did on that deck, I think his moniker is Moon Baby. While I appreciate his work, I really prefer the coloration of the original. I really prefer that. Yes, I love these 1970s colors, and because I was born in 1964, my childhood was the 70s, and I love these colors. So I got this deck, and full disclosure, I bought this deck twice already. First deck I received was missing cards, and so I was able to get a partial refund for that deck because, and that's a long story, yeah. Because I live in Korea, the seller would not ship to Korea. I had to ship it to a person in the United States, and they forwarded it to me. And when I got it, then I realized I discovered that it was not a complete deck, and then things ensued. So I got another copy of the deck, but this copy of it, while it does have all of the cards on it, has the box and the book, there's something weird about the card stock that makes me think it is not the original, or maybe it's a later publishing, but it's very yellowed. And the reason I love this deck is the colors in the cards, and the card stock is odd, and it is has a yellow, like it was soaked in tobacco water kind of yellow background, and I'm just not happy with it. So I might be still searching for my hoi polloi, but I've got, this is not that deck. What I did was I've collated those two decks, and let's see if I'm happy with it in the future. I might, but I'm still got my eye out for another copy, I think. We'll see. But I love these cards. And you saw, from left to right, we had the 8 of Pentacles, the 10 of Pentacles, and the 9 of Wands. And these elements are not, how would I, okay, so there are two reasons that I want to read this spread the way I want to read this spread. One is, if you look at them, they are going in a kind of ascending order, 8, 9, and then 10, which makes me think mother pillar, father pillar, central pillar. Does that make sense? Now, they don't actually, 8, 9, 10 do not land that way on the Tree of Life, and we're not there in the Esoterica yet, but it does feel like we're going 8 and 9 coming together to form the 10. Yeah? Also, if you look at the people in the card, yes, we have the 8 of Pentacles guy looking from left to right. We have the 9 of Wands guy looking from right to left, both of them merging in the center with a whole bunch of people in the 10 of Pentacles, right? So for those reasons, I really want to read these cards, because it wasn't a positional spread, the two coming together to join and form the 10. The 8 and 9 coming together to form the 10. Do you see what I'm talking about? And so when we look at the 8 of Pentacles, just by image, we think of, on the mother pillar, so on the side of the presence of absence, right? We want to do the work. But we want to be careful. We don't want to do the work to distract ourselves from the void, from the things that are absent, but we want to do the work of looking at and discovering the jewels within the voids of the absence. Those liminal spaces, those gaps, have you ever heard God is in the gap? And I don't mean the store that sells jeans and t-shirts, but it's in this, God is in the spaces between stuff. Now, I think that's a very cute and clever way of thinking of things, and I don't think it's actually describing reality in a perfect way, but still, maybe God is more obvious in the gaps because there isn't so much stuff distracting us. Yes? So, the Eight of Pentacles really to me is pointing towards our doing the work of appreciating those gaps. And you notice that they're pentacles, but their pentacles are also a series of triangles, right? And the guy there is focused on those connected triangles which make the Star of the Pentacle, kind of like that triangle in the Presence of Absence card. And then on the other side, on what could be the Father pillar on the right, we got the Nine of Wands, which is what? It's the guy standing there in front of 8 wands behind him, her, them, holding one wand. And we think of things like, and there's a bandage. I love that this bandage is kind of, do you see it? The bandage is red. I love that the pentacles are blue, by the way. I know it's a little odd. We think of gold, and this is almost like the opposite side of the color wheel, maybe, but these blue pentacles are titillating for me in a very strange way. Anyways, the guy in the Nine of Wands has a red band on his head, like a bloodied band, and we think of the guy as having been beaten up a little bit. But also wearing the blues of the pentacles in a way. So it's standing tall, standing strong, having a defense, having protection against attack, but still standing strong after having come through some stuff, right? And that's responding to the celestial of fire using our true will. Right? We have the willpower to stand tall and create. Wands are creative for me. They're fiery creation. Create our lives. And then those two come together and you can't get around it. The tree of life is right there on this card. So even if I'm not reading esoterically, I still see the tree of life in this card. You see that in the Ten of Pentacles, right? And it is what? It is, it's a legacy. It's it could be inheritance that either we are giving or receiving, but it's having enough resources that we're able to take care of those around us. And in that sense, we use the resources that we have in our lives to be able to create the lives that we want to live. Recognizing that the universe, while it does appear empty, if you look out at the stars, it looks empty, but there is an abundance here, and an ever-increasing, creatively expanding abundance here in this physical universe. Yes? And so as responding to our self-creation with intention, we appreciate that we are in an abundant universe and we have resources around us that we can take advantage of, and those resources could also be and I'm not saying use people like tools, but still, other people are also there to be our co-creators. As we co-create their lives, they co-create our lives, and that is part of living intentionally, and that is the central pillar, and that is what this central card of the wild, unknown oracle was pointing towards. But we want to do it, we are called to do this consciously and give attention to it. Because we may have not done that. We may have been sitting on our heels or feeling disempowered or distracting ourselves with other things and not giving attention to creating our own lives, intending our own lives, flowing with our own intention. Yes? Does that make sense? I think it makes sense. I think it makes sense, and I think it's really interesting how these three cards really do seem to be responding, even looking at just the images and what we generally think of when we think of these cards, really seem to be responding to each one of those cards in that three-card oracle spread, pointing directly towards the tree of life, the tree of life in the Ten of Pentacles. That's just fascinating to me. I hope it's fascinating to you. And that's one of the reasons I love this deck. Okay, so friends, what I'm going to do now is I'm going to show you these three cards again once more, up close and personal, so that you can appreciate those cards again, and then we'll go into the more esoteric reading of this spread. Are you ready? Friends, here they are again. Friends, I've also put up the Tree of Life here on this side for a couple of reasons. Because I've already mentioned the Tree of Life several times, and it might as well show you what it is, just in case you don't know what it is. This is the way that Kabbalists arrange the Hebrew letters and the 10 Sephirah into a path of creation, from the divine monad at the top and down to the foundational creation of the material realms in Malkut. And each one of the Sephirot, and I might be wrong with my singular pronunciation of each one of those circles, each one of the Sephirot is connected by a path which has a Hebrew letter associated with it, and those Hebrew letters are also associated to the major arcana, and yada yada yada. So if you want to see more about that, there is that other playlist, which was Walking the Lines of Origins to Deeper Strata, which I recommend, in case you're curious, as to my perspective. So, you see in this Tree of Life, I have 3 Sephirah highlighted. Yes? The 8th, the 9th, and the 10th. So, for the 8 of Pentacles, we have Hod. For the 9 of Pentacles, we have Yesod, and for the 10 of Pentacles, we have Malkut, right? And Hod is it's eights, and it is, to me, it's surrender to what is. 9s are foundation. They're the final step before actual manifestation into physical form. It's the foundation. It's the divine spirit finally coalescing to a state that is just about to be manifest. Right? This is the foundation of the Tree of Life. And then we have Malkut, which is kingdom, which is this material realm with the 10s. And you see those 8 of Pentacles, 9 of Wands, 10 of Pentacles right there on the tree, right? So, it might have been a little bit more interesting to me if it had been the 7 of Wands, the 8 of Pentacles, and the 10 of Pentacles. That would have been stronger, father pillar, mother pillar, center pillar for me. But still, we have a really strong, I think, and interesting exploration of esoterica to dive into. And let us start by just strongly saying that we are going to read these cards in the same way. Yes, we're going to start with the mother pillar with the 8 of Pentacles, then go to the father pillar with the 9 of Pentacles, and then bring them all together in the 10 of Pentacles in the center pillar, this middle pillar, the central path. Okay, so friends, here we go. 8 of Pentacles, what do we see? For us, on this channel, the 8 of Pentacles is a representative of the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Yes, it is the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, I'm sorry, what am I saying? 7. It's the 8 of Pentacles. Okay, so I'm sorry. This is the 8 of Pentacles, which is the second decan of Virgo, yeah, which is keyed to Capricorn. So we have Saturn. Notice we've got Saturn. Here we are, Saturn in Gemini. We have Saturn in Virgo. Yes? And we have the cardinal aspect of mutable Earth's vital attributes entering our spread. And we have Hod lit up over here for surrender, surrendering to what is, surrendering to the work that we are doing, surrendering to our doing the same thing over and over to achieve mastery. Yeah, we're not resisting having to do the same task over and over again to master it. We're surrendering to the process of living in the physical universe, right? And upright for the 8 of Pentacles, I have the idea of meaningful effort. We're not just working to work, we're working to have a meaningful result. So this is the idea of working hard, and still, because of Capricorn, we're anxious for success. Yes? Capricorns are the ones who want to climb to the top of the mountain. We want success. And we are willing to work with other people to achieve success. But this isn't Capricorn, this is Virgo. But it's the Capricorn aspect of Virgo. It's a Virgo that still wants to succeed. And things that could be highlighted are teaching, mental organization, and concentration. Because Mercury is the ruler of Virgo, we have those ideas of teaching, again, mental organization, concentration. Mercury likes doing that stuff and likes getting their hands on stuff as well. So experience is important. We might lack a little self-confidence and a little bit of spontaneity, yeah, but we still want to succeed. We still want to experience the world. We still want to focus on the task at hand. And we want to practically apply thought rather than just thinking our thoughts and having these new ideas, right? Any new idea we notice, we will critique in how applicable it is. Yes? And the question I might ask of this card when it is upright is, what focused effort or skill is required now? Part of that discussion we've already had of the 8 of Pentacles responding to the void, this gap, the liminal spaces, the emptiness that we might be uncomfortable noticing, right? So our skill, our focus can be put into that exploration for practical purposes. With organized thought, because again, Saturn, right? And now with this card, second decan of Virgo, we have Mercury in its complement, which is Sagittarius, which is going to be important in just a moment. So we've got Mercury in Sagittarius. Mercury is in that philosopher, passionate, fun-loving, move ahead of the pack and I'm the leader, follow me, Sagittarius, right? So our skill is guided by purpose. Our work is aligned with our vision of what we will become, what we will experience, what we will evolve into being. The next stage of our evolution. And it's learning through application, right? There's still the desire. Mercury in Virgo wants to put things to practical purpose. And our craft is connected to meaning. We don't just, again, do stuff to do stuff. We want to do stuff that is meaningful to ourselves and to our growth and to our evolution and to our intentional life. Yes? Does that make sense? So we surrender to what is to the void, the gap, the presence of absence by getting to work and focusing on what can be maybe excavated, what can be unearthed, what can be realized, what can be emanating from those gaps, or stepping through those gaps, right? And then on the other side, on the father pillar, we had the Nine of Wands. The Nine of Wands, the nines, they are key. The Nine of Wands is there to represent the third decan of Sagittarius. Remember, we got Sagittarius there with Mercury in its complement in the Eight of Pentacles. Here, we're full on Sagittarius. But this third decan of Sagittarius is keyed to Leo, which is ruled by the sun. So we have the sun in Sagittarius. Now remember, we had Saturn in the earth with Eight of Pentacles. Here we have the sun in the Nine of Wands in Sagittarius. And if we think of planetary couplings, right? Venus, Mars, couple. Jupiter, Mercury, couple. And then we have the thruplet of the pairings, yes? We have Saturn, the Earth, and the Moon. The Earth and the Moon are a couple pair paired with Saturn, if you look at the ladder of lights. Yes? So here we have the sun, which is the kind of pair of Saturn, on the same side of the ladder of lights ascending from Leo up to Sagittarius and then to Capricorn. Yes? So we've got the sun up there, right next to Capricorn, with Saturn. And so we have the fixed aspect of mutable fires, vital attributes, entering our spread here. Yeah? We had the cardinal aspect of mutable earths attributes entering with the Eight of Pentacles. Here we have the fixed aspect of mutable fires, vital energies entering the spread. And we have Yesod, which is foundation, right? Foundation, ready to create, with the Nine of Wands. And when it's upright, we've got guarded perseverance. Yes, we keep going, but we do have our boundaries, our safety, our walls. So with the Nine of Wands, we've got the optimism of Sagittarius and the determination of Leo. So determined and optimistic powers and influence in things that are progressive in the sense of education, religion, cultural institutions, large societal concerns. And those could be very broad or could be very intimate. What do I want to learn? Or what does my family want to learn? What do my friends want to learn? Yes? What is my spirituality? What is the spirituality of my tribe? Whatever that is for you. Yeah? What is my culture? What is the culture of my tribe? And I'm not appropriating Native American tribeness, but when we talk about our tribes as our group of people, whether they are biological family, they are friends or co-workers or fellow students of Tarot or fellow explorers and teachers of Tarot, whatever our tribe is, our group, our peeps. Do people still say peeps? I don't think we do anymore. But you know what I'm talking about, yes? So our determined and optimistic approach to power and influence in education, religion, spirituality, and cultural institutions for us, our families, our tribes, our groups, or society at large, depending on how widely you see your life. There's enlightenment here possible, with a little bit of romance and a little bit of idealism tossed in for good measure. They're performers. Yes, nines of wands are performers. You could see the guy in the nine of wands here standing in front of a backdrop in a sense. And they love applause. They love the bravos. Good job on all that stuff you've come through, right? And they never seem to grow old. They're jovial. But they won't be forced to do something that they're not interested in doing, right? They're following their own will, their own willpower. And remember, this one is responding to the willpower card of Celestial Fire. They don't turn from problems. They're willing to face problems, and they're willing to ask for help. They will fight their own battles. They don't expect other people to fight for them. And they will solve their own problems. And they will move forward, whether other people are following them or not. So upright, I might ask, what effort has reached its limit? Yeah, we're about to have the potential of stepping to the burden of the 10, right? So if we're cautious and we're careful with our willpower, we don't have to necessarily go into the oppressive burden of the 10s. We can stop here because we're here at a limit. A liminal space is in front of us. And because, what is the question I might ask? What effort has reached its limit? I already asked that, didn't I? Okay, now, so, because this is the third decan of Sagittarius, we have Jupiter in its exaltation. And Jupiter is exalted. It is applauded. It is praised. It is lifted up in Cancer. Right? Cancer. And guess where Jupiter still is right now? Jupiter is still in Cancer. Just saying. At the time of the filme, at the time of this spread, Jupiter was in Cancer. So Jupiter is exalted now. And what does that mean? That means that we have faith sustained through care. Our caring for other people sustains us. We're able to protect what we have built or what we have co-created. We have emotional resilience, and we have endurance, which is founded on our belonging to Cancer, right? Belonging to our group, whatever that is. That group is our foundation for our endurance. And we have emotional resilience, which is wonderful because it's, I think, called for right now. So those two aspects come together in the 10 of Pentacles. And the 10s of Pentacles, for me, the 10s are more than the fulfillment, it is the saturation or oversaturation of an element in the present time. So 10s of Pentacles are what? It says that form is fully realized, fully manifest, and it is fully manifest, and yet there is a chance for evolution. Structures are complete and enclosing, so there is pressure there, which could be towards passing it on, decay, because anything that is not a living ecosystem will start to decay and die, right? So we can pass it on, it could decay, or it can be renewed. And I think this 10 of Pentacles is asking for our renewal. And this 10 of Pentacles esoterically for me, it's not wealth, but rather it's a material closure. But that closure could die under its own pressure unless we are able to revitalize it and restart the ecosystem of flowing out and receiving. So what structure is complete under pressure and ready to transform, ready to restart the engine of exchange, of resource? And that is sitting right in the center of our indication of giving more attention and energy and thought to our intentional creation in our lives, because it is sitting right beneath that fire of dimensional which was lacking energy. So we're asked to put energy into this system of Ten of Pentacles to restart the engine of resource, the ecosystem of resources. Does that make sense? And that engine will help to move us with our powerful flow of intention, which is constantly moving in the direction of our evolving to the beings we want to become, to the experiences we have decided for ourselves. And if we are able to restart that engine, maybe we'll be able to start moving with the flow of energy instead of sinking to the bottom and moving very, very slowly. Because a rock in a moving river will move at the bottom of the river bed, but it's going to move very, very slowly. Whereas a leaf on the top of the river is going to move very, very quickly. So we restart the engine and we can become the ship that skims along the top of the river or the current of our intention, rather than sinking down with the weight of saturation of the Ten of Pentacles, because we're not giving it energy. We haven't restarted the engine, the ecosystem of exchange. Does that make sense? And that exchange isn't necessarily money. It's exchange of resources, of work, of attention, of creation, of evolution, of expansion and creativity and beauty and love and kindness and receptivity. Yes? So friends, there's a lot of hope here, but it is calling for our attention. And we do have Saturn very strongly influencing us here in these spreads, and we've got the light of the sun available to us, and we've got Jupiter in Cancer as a support. Yes? A lot of beautiful potential if we put our attention on it. Put our attention on our intention. And that might be the title of this video. Put attention on intention. Okay, friends, thank you. Thank you for being with me on this journey. Thank you for your attention. And now, as always, I wish you love, joy, well-being, and pure awareness. Thank you.